just wanna have a good time and take you for a ride. Walked up in the club, looking for some fun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to LDM Radio Sports Talk, the show that talks about sports and other topics relatable to sports fans. Joining me this week in New Jersey is Anthony Lopez.
What's going on, Alfonso? How are you?
All right. Feeling good. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so how can you hear me? Can you hear me good?
I hear you perfect.
All
About
right.
30 seconds away from.
All right, sounds good. So, we're going to jump right into the NHL, and we're going to start with the most, arguably the most exciting series to date is the Battle of Florida between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning ended up winning the series 4-2. What is your takes on the series, and what was your overall thoughts on how everything went down?
I mean, honestly, it's not even. You're thinking they're going to take it. They're going to take the Stanley Cup again. I mean, on paper, their goaltending right now is unbelievable. Vasilevsky's probably in my top 3 right now. My number 1 with everything. So I really don't see them having a problem winning it all, and that's really what it comes down to for the Pittsburgh Penguins as well. Their goaltending was a little on the shaky side.
Yeah, it's funny because that was always the problem on one side of Pennsylvania, and then now it seems to be an epidemic that has gotten to the other side of Pennsylvania. But before we get to that series, so this was, I think we talked about it in the preview show how this was supposed to be like. This was supposed to be the Florida Panthers coming out party, where if they ended up beating Tampa, not only would they be defeating the Stanley Cup champions, but they'd like really put a stamp and try to get the casual fans, the casual fan vote in Florida. So they weren't able to do that. A lot of the talk surrounding this series was how the Tampa Bay Lightning were able to circumvent the salary cap system and have basically hold out Nikita Kucherov until the playoffs ended up starting. So what are your thoughts on that, and them being $17 million over the cap and things like that?
Well, that's the other thing everyone's talking about. They're over cap space. They got so much firepower and everything else. But there's loopholes in everything. And, do I think they're going to wind up figuring out some kind of way? Of course. Where there's a will, there's a way. But it's got to be done. Their team on paper is absolutely phenomenal. They move the puck well, and they have to figure out some kind of way, because that's somebody that's really going to hurt the team if they end up losing him.
Yeah, I think it must be. I'd have to imagine, because I know baseball has a system in place where from the first rehab assignment they have like 30 days to call up the said player that's on the injury rehab. So I can't imagine that he was injury free for like more than a month, and then he ended up coming in. I heard he was skating a couple of weeks before, but really nothing super concrete. And he ends up having 9 points in the series and is second in the NHL in scoring. So it's
well, it's Nikita Kucherov. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not just somebody that's going to give you 1 or 2 points. So like I said, it's definitely a huge addition for them going to the second round of the playoffs. Are they going to repeat? I definitely think so. Like I said, the goaltending and their D is unbelievable, and then their abilities to move the puck on the power play and just pretty much score at will.
Yeah, they definitely have a studly bunch over there. But the Florida Panthers, they didn't just lay down. They weren't, it didn't seem like they weren't up for the task. They just weren't able to match them, like super talent wise. Like, they did really well in the regular season. They ended up winning 5 out of the 7 games, but this is the playoffs, and the additions of Kucherov and Steven Stamkos, who missed the last couple of weeks with injuries, they were very, very well timed coming back, and that was pretty much the difference in the series. That's why I ended up picking Tampa Bay, even though I was rooting for the Florida Panthers to win the Battle of Florida. But at the end of the day, I mean, the defending Stanley Cup champions, they did what they do.
And the other thing too is a lot of people thought they were just going to sweep it and take it all in Florida. That Tampa Bay was going to sweep it all, and they didn't. They definitely showed a fight. Do I think they need to add a couple of more pieces to the puzzle? Absolutely, but I wouldn't count them out next year. I think they're going to go out and they're going to find something, and they're going to be back with a vengeance next year.
So the conundrum that they are facing right now is the fact that they have Sergei Bobrovsky making $10 million, and then he ends up not even starting the last couple games. They had the Olympic sensation, the juniors Olympic sensation, Spencer Knight took the last 2 games and ended up winning one of them, and then wasn't able to win the other one. But they have a goaltending issue. They have a lot of goalies between Bobrovsky and Chris Dreger, and then Spencer Knight, and now it's like, how are you going to be able to move forward? You can't just have like a $10 million bench goalie, splitting time and stuff like that. So how do you see them settling this goaltending in the future?
Well, I mean, honestly, just talking about the playoffs, you go with someone that has the experience. I would have went with Bobrovsky. Spencer Knight, yes, he's great. He's fantastic. When you don't have to go with somebody to that caliber that doesn't have the experience like that, you could pay the price, and they definitely paid the price. You're paying somebody $10 million to stop the puck, and you don't have them starting, then you know what? Then you might want to think about who's giving these contracts and what was what was on their agenda. Like, is this something that's going to be a problem next season? What do you do with a $10 million contract and you got these 2 goalies splitting it like that? It shouldn't be.
Yeah, Bobrovsky was getting shelled early in the series, and then they ended up going to Drager, and then eventually Spencer Knight. It's pretty much like they went through every goal that they had and divide up the condensed schedule, like and have your guy going, and he's got to be rolling.
Well, and that's just the other thing too. Like, for me, I used to play goalie back in the day. You need to find that groove to get into. And when you're playing one game and then you're being pulled and then you're not playing the next game, it does something to someone's mental, take on the game. They can't get into focus. And, I mean, one goaltender that, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, is Braden Holtby. He's got that focus. And that's the focus that I'm talking about. Like, you can't get into a focus being pulled out, playing one game, not playing the next 2. It's a nightmare for a goalie, and you really can't do it to somebody.
Yeah, that might be a ripple effect in a lot of these other series. But we're actually going to move on to we're going to go to a local, our only local team. Stanley Cup playoffs is the New York Islanders. They were a 4th seed in this playoffs, and they ended up beating the East Division winning Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2. What were your takes on this series and how everything unfolded?
You know what? Honestly, we're going to go back. We're going to rewind to a couple years back with the expansion draft with Vegas. They make a mistake and keep Murray and let the Flower go. My personal opinion, I believe so, because look who's playing still and who's not playing. Their goalie is not your goal. Your defense is everything. Your defense and your goalie just didn't have it. I mean, you got to give. I'm a Rangers fan, and give it up for the Islanders right now, because they're coming out with a force that's just to be reckoned with. I mean, there's a couple of people that can carry the puck the way Barzal does. It's if you ever seen Ilya Kovalchuk play, the puck is always moving. It doesn't stop. And Nate McKinnon. I mean, they're just what he does, and that's his line. And then you got the other line of Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, and Josh Bailey. You you can't. They're coming out and they're unbelievable right now. And again, their goaltending is but they did put it past, and they're putting up goals, and that's really what it boils down to. They're putting up 5 goals, 4 goals a game. It's great, and the amount of overtimes that we're seeing, this is absolutely fantastic playoff hockey right now. I couldn't ask for more.
I have to agree. As far as goaltending in this series, definitely went in favor of the New York Islanders. They had their 1 and 2 tandem, but then the young rookie Sorokin was able to win pretty much all the games that he was a part of, which is pretty cool to see. As far as because he's basically like the future, and the future is now for them. So that was really cool to see. But on the other side, you had Tristan Jarry, who just basically gave up a game and then just wasn't really strong throughout the whole series. Seemed like very nerve-wracking saves, even when he made the saves. Got a couple wins, but really, really, I'd say out of the whole playoffs, this was like the one playoff where the one goalie kind of just, lost the playoffs for him. Even though
I mean, he was definitely the deal breaker. And when he gave away that, first of all, hockey 101. Let's cut and dry there, Alfonso. You don't take a puck and you don't dump a puck up the middle. That is hockey 101. You go up the boards. There's no reason that should have ever be. And he didn't even give it anything. He just sauced it. And I'll tell you right now, they lost that game. And honest to God, that's really what killed that just drained the life out of the Pittsburgh Penguins. That was it. And they just couldn't get anything going. The passes coming out of the zone, Malkin and Crosby. I mean, listen, again, New York Rangers fan, but Crosby is one of the best players in the world. I mean, he's absolutely amazing. His playmaking abilities are great, but this all falls right back to where I said before. You need the goaltending to be strong. You need a strong D-core, and you need a strong goaltender. If not, you are not going deep in these playoffs. You're definitely not.
Yeah, right now, I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins had at least 4 future Hall of Famers on the roster, arguably 5, depending on how you want to shake everything out. But as far as what transpired with Vegas, and all right, so just to catch the viewers up at home, the expansion draft came up. You had to save one goalie. So Marc-Andre Fleury was the incumbent goalie, but he ended up losing his starter job in the 2016 Stanley Cup playoffs. And then Matt Murray, who is now the starter for the Ottawa Senators, he basically won them the Stanley Cup that year by starting all the games, and then ended up winning enough of them to win the Stanley Cup. He was the younger version. I think in hindsight's always 20/20, but if you look at it, you have your young up and coming who you thought was a stud for all purposes. He was because he just ended up winning the Stanley Cup championship. So over the aging Marc-Andre Fleury, who still had something in him, but you had to pick one. I'd have to say they made the right call for what it was at the time. They didn't know that Matt Murray would end up struggling after that season up until his departure from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't think they really did anything super wrong there. I just think that right now it's easy to say that it was the wrong call, but if you look at it on paper, it seemed like it was the right call at the time.
Well, I mean, I disagree a little bit. You take a goalie that that's right there, and they pretty much got you the cup, but that's all you know. You don't know what it's like to play 82 games.
Yeah.
You can't base the rest of your franchise or your next season off a goaltender that's only played X amount of games. And honestly, I think that really hurt him, because now they got rid of Murray, they got rid of the Flower, which is he's doing great in Vegas, and now what do you have? Now you have a shaky goalie that pretty much lost you the playoffs this year.
Yep.
I mean, we got to call a spade a spade. It's again, you can rewind it back 100 times. If they did this, then this would have happened. But in my personal opinion, they should have kept Fleury, or they should have figured out a way to keep both of them, and have Fleury show him the way and mold him. You always need a veteran goaltender to show the new guy that's coming up. and and the goalie coaches, and that's the way it goes. You just, I don't know, that's just my opinion on it.
It was definitely a tough break. That right now you have this team with 4 or 5 future Hall of Famers, and they're also aging, so their championship window and everything else like that is closing. So whatever decisions they make in the future as far as goaltending goes, they really have to make it fast because they don't have a lot of time to just groom somebody else waiting in the wings and things like that. Like they have to they're pretty much built to win now up until these couple guys like Crosby, Malkin, Letang, when these guys are all retiring. So they have to win
I
now.
also want to give a quick shout out to Rust. Let me tell you something. He's a very underrated player. He's always at the right place at the right time. He hustles and bustles in the corner. He's really great. I mean, they have the team, and like you said, they just need to get that one piece that's missing, and it's the goaltending. Unfortunately, that's probably the hardest piece to get in hockey is the goaltending.
They went from too many to not enough real fast. I think that goes for a lot of teams too. I remember last year at the trade deadline, it seemed like everybody had goalies and nobody really had like these glaring opportunities for goalies. And then you go to the middle of this season and toward the end of the season, it really seemed like there were a lot of teams that just really were looking for goaltending. It's pretty crazy how 1 year could swing that.
Exactly.
All right.
It's amazing.
So. The New York Islanders, you can't say enough about them as far as their model of consistency. They pretty much just stuck with them until the end, and then they ended up just taking the victories, waiting for the mistakes to happen. They're a defensive stalwart team. They're not they're not a very flashy team. They're not like super exciting for they basically just they slug it out up until the end, and then they just pull out the victory. Yep. Who they'll be playing in the next series came from the Washington Capitals versus the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins ended up winning the series 4-1 in what was a surprisingly swift series. What were your thoughts on the Boston Bruins and Washington Capitals?
I mean, let's be honest here. It's gonna stem right back to the same thing as the goaltending. They let Braden Holtby go, and they got this goalie here that's honestly, you have to. I mean, again, I'm not a GM. I'm not making any of these calls. It's got to be a really hard call to make. But I mean, I think goaltending really hurt them. I mean, look at Taylor Hall. I mean, Taylor Hall. He went first or second overall with Edmonton, and then he got traded, and then he got traded again. Then he went to Buffalo. He went to New Jersey, and I said it all along. He's a great, phenomenal player. The problem was he didn't get on a team that had a veteran to take him under the wing and show him the way. Okay? He went to New Jersey. There was nobody there that really could have helped him. Same thing with Buffalo, and I think he got traded to Arizona as well, if I remember correctly. There's nobody there really to bring him under the wing, like Mershon, Bergeron. Like, these guys are forming this young kid. I mean, he's been in the league quite a few years now, but they're showing him the way how to win and what they need to do and what to look forward to. It's a lot easier said than done. You could say, oh, we're going to win a Stanley Cup, but they're taking him under that wing. And I mean, he's getting in the mix. He's, finding loose pucks. He's putting them in the back of the net. I'll tell you right now, I really wasn't surprised with that, with them winning 4-1 like that. It would have been nice to see the Capitals win with TJ Oshie's dad passing away. And, it would have been a nice story, but, unfortunately it didn't go that way. And Boston's good, but they're going to have a tough time with the Islanders because the Islanders move the puck quickly and they're a fast team. So this is going to be quite interesting to watch. And Tuukka Rask, he's, again, he's been in the league a while, but he's still got that focus. He's still a hungry goalie, and that's what they have to watch out for. They have to pepper him. They can't look for that perfect shot. They got to just put everything on net and, hope for a prayer and something's going to go in, going to hit a skate or something like that. And that's how you win hockey games.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the Boston Bruins, like we talked on the pregame show, how they were top heavy with the forwards, and they just really just dominated that. The forwards just dominated the whole series. It was just the defense and the goal held up pretty good, but it was really the offense that just picked up, just absolutely won it for them. Now the goaltending for the Capitals, they were they had the issues with Henrik Lundqvist. He ended up not being able to play at all because of the the heart condition that he had, and then um, it looked like was it Vatek Viernik? It looked like he was like
Yeah.
the up and comer taking over for Samsonov, but then Samsonov was supposed to be the up and coming stud, and he ended up missing time because of COVID. But it was like COVID regulate. Like the one time I guess he had it, and then the second time he was just held out from the playoffs because he just broke the code. Very head casey kind of stuff going on over there. Not if it was just simply just breaking regulations that really had him like missing playoff games, that's a bad look, and it's not something.
What year did they get rid of Holtby? Was it last year?
Well,
Was it last year they got rid of Holtby?
this past offseason. This past offseason, it was basically like what they ended up doing was they signed Henrik Lundqvist as pretty much almost the same thing as Brandon Holtby, but a cheaper version, and then it ended up just not working out.
But why fix what's not broken? That's my question.
Yeah, well, I think they wanted to save money on a veteran goalie and didn't want us, because Brendan Holtby, he ended up signing with Vancouver for $4.5 million. You would have thought that Washington would have been enough, but then like the New York Rangers had just bought out Henrik Lundqvist, so he was looking for a super cheap deal. They ended up signing him for $1.5 million. So they saved $30 million on the deal. It just didn't work out because of Henrik Lundqvist's heart ailment. And then Brandon Holtby didn't really do that great with the Vancouver Canucks anyway. But just another. I think that's another issue where they played their
cards.
Can't
compare those two teams.
Huh?
You can't compare those two teams. Washington and Vancouver. But I think he would have been a lot better if he stayed and did a lot better. One thing that, in my opinion, is you don't go cheap with is definitely a goalie, because you know what. The goalies are going to, the ones stopping the pucks. And I think that's a huge, huge thing in hockey is goaltending. Yeah. You got to make sure you get your pristine goalie, and that's what's going to take you on your way to the cup.
And, that was another team that it seemed like they had a lot of goaltending. And then when it came down to crunch time, you had 40-year-old Craig Anderson trying to save the season. It just didn't make a lot of sense there.
No.
So all right. So right now we have the Boston Bruins playing the New York Islanders. The Boston Bruins are going to have the home ice advantage because they were the higher seed. So who are you taking in this series, and how many games?
I mean, it's tough, man. I know it sounds crazy, Ranger fan, but I really like to see the Islanders because you know what, they got these young kids that are playing great. But I think we're going to go back to the goaltending issue. So I'm going to go with Boston. I'm going to say Boston in 5.
Yeah, I'd say Boston in 6, just because the Islanders have that defense. But the one thing they can't really do is come back from multiple goal deficits, and the Bruins have that offense to just put points up in a hurry. So I'm going to say Boston in 6 games, but very conceivably it could be the Islanders. The one thing that when they played each other during the season, early in the season, it was the Islanders. I think they won the first 5 games, and then it was Boston who won the last couple. Winding down, and like the Islanders are really taking it to them in the beginning, but then like the Taylor Hall factor, like you mentioned, does change the dynamic of the team when you add a former NHL MVP. That doesn't even have to be the first option. He's basically the 4th, 5th option on the team.
Exactly.
All right. So one of our other, one of the super fast series that happened was, you almost didn't even catch it. It was going by. Was the first seeded Colorado Avalanche beating the 4th seeded St. Louis Blues. Well,
I was not surprised about that at all. I mean, that's one of the teams that I wouldn't mind seeing win the cup is Colorado. The Landeskog and McKinnon. They're doing their thing out there, and they're a great team. And it'd be nice for them to get the break right now because I'm rooting for them. That's a team I want to see win. Honestly, they give so much every year, and they just fall short. And it would be nice for them to win the cup and change it up a little bit.
Yeah, as far as Colorado, they've been coming on the past couple of years, really taking off ever since, pretty much ever since the trade of the Matt Duchene was like when they really
Yep.
jumped up and got to the next level. Um, there was talk with this series with the Blues captain Ryan O'Reilly saying that basically trying to guarantee victory. Did you catch that?
Yeah, only Messier can guarantee victory. Come on
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I don't think I think if anybody's gonna be in an interview, like I don't think they should say that their team's not gonna win. So I don't think there was really much to that. I think they just kind of like try to make some extra motivation, extra craziness. Like this is Stanley Cup playoffs. Like if you need any more extra motivation because somebody said something, it doesn't make to me that doesn't make much sense. I feel like they should have all the motivation in the world to just win. So like the Avalanche came in, they pretty much just rolled over them in the 4 games, which is not unexpected. You looked at the series and you were like, okay, so it's gonna like after in this division, which is the West Division, they're gonna have the Avalanche and the Vegas going down, to determine who's gonna end up winning. So right now we're in a situation where the Vegas Golden Knights and Minnesota Wild are tied at 3, and their Game 7 is going to be tomorrow night. And whoever wins that series will end up playing the Avalanche. What do you think of the Vegas and Golden Knights? Golden Knights and the Wild series.
You know what? I always liked Vegas. But Minnesota, again, Minnesota gets in the way and they block a lot of shots. I mean, I don't know if you watched the last game, but they were always in the right lane and they blocked a lot of shots coming from them. So it's going to be an interesting Game 7. And honestly, it doesn't really matter who wins to me, but I think Vegas is going to pull it. I think Fleury's going to really stand on his head this game and take it.
Yeah. So when we were talking about goalies coming in and out. For the last half of the season, when Robin Lerner, when he ended up coming back from injury, that's what they were doing. They were doing the one game, Lerner starts, 1 game Fleury starts, 1 game Lerner starts. So now, they're going with with Fleury heavily because Fleury was basically a Vezina Trophy finalist in that series. I mean, in the past season. So right now we're in a situation where in our pregame show we were talking in our prediction show for the playoffs. This was the one series where the underdog had a bit of an advantage because the Wild were 3-4-1 against Vegas in this series in the regular season. So
In the regular.
this is it's not surprising that this is going down to a Game 7. It seemed like, for whatever reason, they were just a tough matchup for the Vegas Golden Knights, and it'll be interesting to see how this ends up shaking out.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to an overtime.
But it was looking, because Vegas and Colorado looked like they were just, head to head and like just too heavy, But now it looks like Vegas is getting beat up a bit by the Wild. So like by the time they end up getting to Colorado, they're going to be a little tender going into that series.
Just a little bit. But again, that's playoff hockey though. You can take what you did in the regular season and you could just forget about it because once that playoff hockey comes in, man, it's a whole different dynamic.
That's true because the Pittsburgh Penguins ended up beating the New York Islanders 6 out of 8 games. So that definitely tell you.
Oh yeah.
All right. So the other series that has yet to be determined is going to be the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Nashville Predators. Right now, the Carolina Hurricanes have a 3-2 series lead. What's your take on that series?
Honestly, I can't believe it's actually still going on. I thought Carolina was pretty much going to just take the series quickly. But Nashville's holding up. They're putting up a good fight. I mean, they just got to keep putting pucks in the net. Carolina's another team. It's just like a fast team, and they can just turn it up whenever. Nashville's just got to keep putting pucks on net and pucks on net. You can't win a hockey game with 20 shots on net. 15 shots. You got to just keep shooting, and you can't look for that perfect shot. You know what I mean? You down low, take the shot, and something good will happen. I mean, that's really what it's boiling down to. Obviously, Carolina is the way better team than Nashville, but you know, we're here, and you know what? Again, it's playoff hockey, and anything can change.
Yeah, I gotta say that in looking at this series beforehand, it really seemed like on paper that the Carolina Hurricanes would just roll over them. But Nashville Predators, they have a lot of their core that they had when they ended up making it to the Stanley Cup Finals a couple years ago. So, like they do have a formidable team. For unfortunately because of injuries and different like lulls in the season, they weren't able to keep the consistency up. But if you look at them on paper, they have the strong defense, and they have like they have it seems like just get you by enough scoring. It doesn't like they don't have like those like those dynamic point per game kind of players at the top, but they have like that just get you over like kind of 65 point regular season like balanced throughout the lineup.
Right.
Kind of forwards, and then their goaltending, like it seems like the torch is getting passed this season from Pecorine to UC Saros, and I don't think it's a great shock that Carolina is not, like that the series is still going on, but at the end of the day, Carolina just needs to win this like right now. Like if they end up going to a game 7, then they basically lost this series.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if they push it to a game 7, Nashville's taking it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, because
they're going to go into game 7 with all that momentum like that. It's going to be, and again, they do have good players on the team. It's just looking at Carolina in the in the regular season, and coming in and just again just the way they're they move the puck and the scoring. It's amazing. But if they do push this to a game 7, Carolina's going to have a lot harder time than they think.
Yeah, and this is a situation where the longer this goes, the worse it's going to be for both teams, because they're going to end up facing a healthy and rested Tampa Bay Lightning team that is just waiting in the wings. So, all right. So our last set of series is the Great White North. So the first series is going to be the one that has already ended. It was the second seeded Edmonton Oilers facing the third seeded Winnipeg Jets, and the Winnipeg Jets ended up sweeping the Oilers 4-0. Your thoughts on that?
I don't know what it is in Edmonton. I don't know if it's. I mean, the amount of number 1 draft picks that they've had. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's the GM. Gretzky stepping down was something to really think about, because him and McDavid had this thing going on. That was his protege, and like Crosby has Lemieux. It's going to be interesting. What's McDavid going to do? But I really wasn't shocked. I mean, they got Draisaitl, and they have Draisaitl. They have Nurse playing like 30 minutes a game. I mean, and again, let's go back to the goaltending. The goaltending's a little on the shaky side. I mean, something's got to be done in Edmonton. I mean, they've struggled so long that one person's not going to win you a Stanley Cup. McDavid's not going to win you a Stanley Cup. Even with Draisaitl, you need that. You need a couple of people, and you need people that are not your 80, 90 point people to step up in a season. Like, everybody has to contribute, and that's their problem. They have 2 guys that get all the points and just run away with it, and really that's what it is. And you get burnt out. You can't go 7 games, a 7-game series thinking that they're just going to keep pumping the points. So something definitely has to be done for them. I wish I think about this a lot. As a matter of fact, is it the coaching? Is it GM? Like, what is their issue? What do you think on that, Alfonso? Like, something is wrong in Edmonton, and it's yet to come up what it is, or they got to make some kind of moves. You got to spend to get, you know what I mean? And they're not doing that.
Yeah, I think what success comes down to in sports is just having the right mix of players. So right now they have, like you said, you're a Ranger fan. I'm also a Ranger fan. So when let's say like around the 2015, 2014 seasons, they were good, but they weren't able to score enough, and then they weren't able, like it got to the point where I felt like they had good forwards, but they didn't have good forwards that played together. As far as like maximizing each other to get like the full value and the full point system. Right now, whether the offense, I'd say, kind of takes care of itself because you have not only one but two mercurial generational talents on your team. The
Absolutely.
mathematics, as far as them not even being able to win one playoff game or one playoff round, is just absolutely insane. Because if you think about it from in a basketball standpoint, if you have two superstars on a team that are basically arguably number one and number two in the entire league at different debates and conversations, they'd be at the top of the divisions and making deep playoff runs. Um, it's odd, like they give all the money to they lock up Miko Kiskinen for a long contract, and then he ends up
Yep.
losing his job to a 39-year-old Mike Smith. Mike Smith, who's a former All-Star, ends up having a really really good season, but can't beat the Winnipeg Jets. Well, what I said in the pregame show was that this series had uh, the most likely to have an upset just because the Winnipeg Jets, you don't know what Winnipeg Jets team you're going to have. Like, are you going to have the one that
Right.
ends up super dominating, or are you going to get the one that ends up folding? Because they're also, a very top-heavy offensive team, and they have a perennial Vezina nominee and Connor Hellebuck. So, just really odd the way that like it seems like defense is always an issue, but then like they have good defensemen, but they're not working together enough. And then you have you don't have your stalwart guy in Edmonton. You just have a different guy every year. Before that it was Cam Talbot. Before that it was somebody else. They keep on with the ins and outs, and it's really really odd that mind-boggling that they can't win more with generational talents on the team.
They have to figure something out because they have a phenomenal team, phenomenal players. It's just I don't know what it is, and I really feel bad for McDavid because I know he's frustrated. You could just see it when he does interviews. It's like another Jack Eichel, honestly. You could tell you're frustrated. What are you going to bring to the table? I'm here giving you. I mean, you can't knock McDavid. I mean, the guy's got points for days. I mean, give the guy some help. You got to figure something out. Like something's not driving there, and they gotta figure it out quick.
Well, I gotta say, it definitely has to wear on these top generational talents because they go through the progressions of their whole life, basically being able to control the game just by themselves, and they win. They win. In juniors, like the Pee Wee hockey, they win in like the whatever high school hockey, collegiate hockey, and whatever other channels they go to on their way to the NHL. Like they're basically winning in every aspect of life until they get to the NHL, and then you go to the NHL, and you find out that it's really hard to do that. Depending on who you're with and how they're producing. You have a Ryan Nugent Hopkins who was at the top of the draft pool, and I wouldn't say he's not a good player because he's a very good player, but he's not that one generational talent like that's putting them on the map. And it's just after McDavid and Draisaitl, it's just everybody who's just underperforming mostly in different times, and it's really odd that they can't just be better if you look at them on paper.
Sometimes it's also the coaching too, the coaching style. If the players don't go to the coaching style, I mean, it really can be, it really can cause havoc. I mean, if the coach wants to play one way, let's look at, oh my goodness, Tortorella. If you don't play his style, it just puts a bad damper in the locker room, and that could be an issue there too. I mean, the coach has to adapt to the players that he has, and learn to mix them together and learn how they play. You can't take a generational player like that, or any player for that matter, and change their whole style of play.
Absolutely,
it's not gonna.
Absolutely, and that's there's a lot that we don't know from there, but for the Oilers to go 7-2 in the regular season and then not be able to win not even one game against the Winnipeg Jets is just unreal. So
Yeah.
that I'd say between this was the shocker series of the playoffs so far. It seems like, there's always one, especially in the first round. When it comes to hockey, like in basketball, it seems like, the top teams always end up winning, 19 times out of 20. But, in these situations, there's always a shocker one. And this one, definitely was mind-boggling. And then you go to the other North series that started off a little late. The Toronto Maple Leafs are winning against the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 with the other game going on tonight.
It's definitely going to be a great game. Honestly, I'm very happy for Toronto that they're actually putting something together. I mean, I know you've seen the memes. My husband said he'll marry me when Toronto wins the Stanley Cup, and pretty much it's never. But they're doing pretty well. I mean, Matthews is an absolute powerhouse. I mean, he's just. I mean, you give the guy the puck, and he does amazing things with this puck. I mean, scoring goals. He's assisting in goals. Mitch Marner. I mean, that team is what I was saying before about having veteran players. They have their young studs and they have their veteran players. Okay, and it's a well-rounded team when you look at it. And I think that's one of the things that the Oilers are lacking as well. They don't have that mix. They have these young kids really that don't have the mindset that these veterans do, and I think that's really what's helping Toronto. I really think Toronto's going to win tonight. I just think that they're a more hungry of a team right now, especially with John Tavares, taking that bad hit to the head. I mean, Corey Perry, everybody, says, he's a repeat offender, but he did try and jump out of the way, and unfortunately, he just got it right in the noggin. Unfortunately, but I'm gonna go Toronto.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this series is not exactly a surprise. Way that it's been 3-1 Toronto, and I think this is more of like an experience showcase for the Montreal Canadiens. Like they were able to grind, they were able to make the playoffs, and it's kind of just like they're just happy to be there, and this is great for the young team, except for Carey Price, who obviously has been there forever. He's a very elite Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer and goaltender. So, his championship window and career is closing rapidly. So it sucks for him. But as far as the whole team as a whole, they have a lot of young studs and they're up and coming, and this is all great experience for them. Now the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, up and down the lineup, they're just star-studded, and it's even with Tavares being out, they're still able to look like a formidable bunch that should be able to, they should be able to roll over the Jets. I mean, this is not even a question.
It's not even fair.
But right now that they also have a bit of a goaltending issue, so that's going to be something because Jack Campbell is the incumbent goalie right now. He's looking pretty good, but he has injury issues, and it can all go downhill really fast as far as goaltending goes. So right now, so far, so good. They should be able to go through the Canadiens within a game or two, and then head over and play Winnipeg. They
should be able, as long as they continue to score. That's all they have to do. If they continue to put pressure on their other team to make them score goals, they'll be fine. They're not gonna win games 1-0 or 2-0 or 2-1. It's not gonna happen.
And the one really interesting aspect of this division is that it lines up with whoever wins out of the West, which could potentially be the Colorado Avalanche. So the road to the Stanley Cup Finals is going to have to go through Canada, and then whoever wins out of these 4 teams and 3 teams now end up going who's going to end up playing out West. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that ends up shaping out.
Very excited for this playoff hockey. Very excited.
Yeah, so, all right, so we got a couple minutes in the show. I just wanted to touch base on a little bit of basketball news. So locally, we have the Brooklyn Nets, who have a 2-0 series lead on the Boston Celtics. They are just knocking the boots off of the Celtics, it seems like, in all these games. And then we have the Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks, who are they're tied up at 1 game apiece in their series. Any thoughts on basketball? On local basketball?
Well, I mean, just just the Knick game last night. I mean, New York erupted outside, in Manhattan last night.